The Ukrainian army's position continues to deteriorate rapidly in all key directions of the front. Furthermore, many military experts noticed that after the crushing defeat of the Ukrainian formations in the Kursk region, the Ukrainian army began to rapidly lose its positions not only in the Donbass, but also in the southern part of the country. So, over the past 48 hours, Ukrainian troops were forced to flee from two strategically important settlements in the Zaporizhia region. As you remember, yesterday, I informed you about the liberation of the settlement of Pyatikatki by Russian troops. And now, 20 hours later, Russian troops have also managed to liberate the Stepovoy settlement, north of Pyatikatki. In addition, on the morning of March 17, war correspondents also announced the Russian army's entry into such settlements as Shcherbaki, Kamenskoye, and Mali Shcherbaki. At the same time, multiple Russian sources, along with respected war correspondents, acknowledged that on the evening of March 17, Ukrainian army units were compelled to abandon all these settlements. According to them, as of March 18, all these settlements are under the full control of the Russian army. It is reported that currently, Russian troops are stripping these settlements. Thus, looking at the map of hostilities in the Zaporizhia direction of the front, it becomes clear that the Russian army is targeting the city of Orikhiv, which is the main administrative center of the Zaporizhia region. At the moment, Russian troops are advancing on this city from three directions at once: from the south, southwest, and southeast. It is noteworthy that all Western and European analytical centers claim that it was Ukraine's total failure in the Kursk region that set in motion Zaporizhia direction of the front, where previously only positional battles had been observed. At the same time, war correspondents began to record the advance of Russian troops also in the Kherson, Kharkiv, and even Sumy directions of the front. Therefore, it is evident that following Ukraine's total failure in the Kursk region, from a strategic perspective, Kiev no longer has military options to alter the situation on the battlefield. Ukraine in the West will no longer be able to compensate for the loss of such a large number of heavy equipment and elite units. The loss of almost 70,000 soldiers and about 3,000 pieces of heavy equipment in the Kursk region has finally undermined the combat effectiveness of the Ukrainian army. At the moment, Kiev has only two options for further actions: to capitulate and save the lives of the remaining Ukrainian soldiers, or to continue fighting to the last Ukrainian, in the hope that during this time the situation in the world may radically change. For example, the Kiev authorities genuinely anticipate engaging not only the United States, but also other NATO countries in the war against Russia. In addition, the Ukrainian Special Services, together with the British MI6, are doing everything to ensure that the United States and Russia enter a new phase of tension, so that Moscow completely switches to confrontation with Washington, which, in their opinion, will lead to concessions from Russia on the Ukrainian issue. Thus, it becomes clear that the Kiev regime, if it continues to remain in power, will force the Ukrainian army to fight to the end, just as the Nazi authorities did in Germany during World War II. On the other hand, if during this time the Ukrainian and British special services fail to change the geopolitical situation in the world in their favor, Ukraine will lose even more territories, including access to the Black Sea. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said he would call Vladimir Putin on March 18 to discuss the current situation in Ukraine. At the same time, the owner of the White House denied offering any other details on the upcoming conversation with the Russian leader. The only thing he said was that he would touch upon the topic of Ukrainian territories and power plants. It is noteworthy that the day before this statement by the US president, insiders in the Kremlin said that Donald Trump plans to discuss with Putin the fate of US citizens who ended up in the Kursk region. Moreover, some influential Russian military experts also added fuel to the fire. In particular, referring to their own sources in the Russian military department, they said that the encircled Ukrainian troops are fiercely resisting and refusing to surrender for a reason. According to them, among the Ukrainian soldiers who are surrounded in the Kursk region, there are also regular officers from NATO allied countries. It is noteworthy that this information was also confirmed by the coordinator of the Russian underground in Ukraine, Sergei Lebedev. According to him, 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers are currently surrounded in the Kursk region, including 30 NATO officers. It is reported that these officers are US, British, and French citizens. According to Sergei Lebedev, these officers coordinated the Ukrainian Army's actions in the Kursk region, taking into account satellite intelligence data, and also coordinated missile strikes deep into Russian territory. Thus, it becomes clear why Donald Trump asked Vladimir Putin to spare the lives of trapped Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region. There is no doubt that on March 18, during a telephone conversation, Donald Trump will ask Vladimir Putin to release these NATO officers, and not to publicize their detention. Something similar happened in Mariupol in 2022. Back then, during the storming of the Azovstal plant, Russian soldiers managed to capture not only Ukrainian Nazis from the Azov regiment, but also 70-year-old US Admiral Eric Olson and British Lieutenant Colonel John Bailey. Moreover, in one of the underground bunkers of Azovstal, Russian soldiers also managed to capture 5 NATO military advisors. Back then, the West managed to convince Vladimir Putin not to advertise this situation and release high-ranking NATO officers. Of course, now Vladimir Putin probably regrets letting these Nazi supporters go, especially considering how aggressively the Biden administration has behaved towards Russia over the past 3 years. Nevertheless, given the warm and even friendly relations between Trump and Putin, the Russian president is likely to comply with the request of the current owner of the White House. Most likely, Putin will release these trapped NATO officers. However, I am personally convinced that these NATO officers must be brought to justice as terrorists and receive long prison sentences in Russian jail.